What's up, everyone? Today, we're going to be looking at what might be the most elaborate, high-budget work of fiction ever produced. It's not a Marvel movie, it's not a Hideo Kojima fever dream, and it's not the lore of some obscure indie RPG. We're talking about the modern conservative movement, specifically the Trump era, and their claim to the throne of Christian values. It is a spectacle of such monumental irony that it feels like the universe is glitching. We are watching a group of people claim to follow a homeless pacifist Middle Eastern carpenter who preached about giving away your clothes to the poor, while they simultaneously worship a billionaire who puts his name on a building in gold leaf. It's a performance so detached from the source material that it's like trying to adapt The Notebook into a high-octane slasher film where the main character kills people with a chainsaw made of tax cuts. Let's look at the leadership first, because the head of the snake is wearing a very expensive, very poorly fitted suit. If you read the New Testament, there's a recurring theme of humility. Jesus wasn't exactly known for his "look at me, I'm the greatest, I have the best words, everyone says I'm the best at being a Messiah" energy. He was more of a wash the feet of the people who hate you kind of guy. Then you have the Trump administration. This was a 4-year and counting speed run of the 7 deadly sins. Let's break it down. Pride. The man has enough ego to create his own gravitational pull. If he walked past a mirror and didn't see his own reflection, he'd probably sue the mirror for defamation. Greed. He's like the physical manifestation of a Scrooge McDuck vault, but with more lawsuits and less charm. Lust. We've all seen the headlines. The man treats the 10 Commandments like a to-do list for a wild weekend in Vegas. And yet, the Christian right looks at this and says, yes, this is the guy. This is the protector of the faith. It's the most insane case of cognitive dissonance I've ever seen. It's like hiring a pyromaniac to be the chief of the fire department and then be shocked when the station is reduced to a pile of ash and charred brick. They've decided that the character of the leader doesn't matter as long as he promises to hurt the people they don't like. It's a transaction. Now let's get into the policy, because this is where the hypocrisy starts to smell like a dumpster fire in a humid alleyway. The Bible has some pretty specific instructions about how to treat the stranger or the immigrant. It basically says, hey, don't be a jerk to them. In fact, treat them like they're one of your own. The modern conservative response to this is to build a wall so big it can be seen from space, and then celebrate when families are separated like they're pieces of a Lego set that nobody wants. They'll stand in front of a church and then talk about border security with a level of vitriol that would make a Disney villain take a step back and say, whoa, maybe tone it down a bit. If Jesus showed up at the border today, a Middle Eastern man with no ID and a bunch of radical ideas about helping the poor, these people wouldn't welcome him. They put him in a holding cell and complain about his woke agenda on a cable news segment. They've managed to turn love thy neighbor into love thy neighbor provided they have a valid visa, speak perfect English, and don't lower your property value. It's a total subversion of the text. It's taking the Good Samaritan story and rewriting it into the Samaritan just films the guy in the ditch for TikTok clout and then calls the police to report a loiterer. Let's talk about the money. The Bible famously says that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. It doesn't say the love of money is a great way to show God's favor. And yet we have the prosperity gospel infecting the entire conservative movement. This is the idea that if you're rich, God loves you. And if you're poor, you're clearly a failure in the eyes of the Creator. It's the most disgusting, oily logic ever conceived. It's the theological equivalent of a pyramid scheme. They've turned Jesus into a hedge fund manager. They've taken a religion that was founded by the oppressed and they've gift wrapped it to the oppressors. When the Trump administration gutted social programs, when they made it harder for people to get health care, when they mocked the idea of a living wage, they did it all while claiming to be the party of faith. It's a slap in the face to anyone who actually reads the Gospels. You cannot serve both God and money. But these people are trying to do it by making money the God and using the Bible as a fancy leather-bound holster for their wallets. Religious freedom has become the catchphrase of the decade for these people. But when they say religious freedom, they don't mean the freedom for everyone to practice their faith. They mean the freedom for us to be bigots without anyone calling us out on it. They want the freedom to deny services to people they don't like, the freedom to push their specific narrow-minded views into public schools, and the freedom to ignore any law that inconveniences them. But the second second a Muslim, or heaven forbid, an atheist, asks them for the same freedom, the conservative movement loses its collective mind. It's the ultimate double standard. They want a theocracy where they're the ones holding the scepter. They don't want the morals of the Bible. They want the authority that they think the Bible gives them. It's about power. It's always been about power. They use the cross as a cudgel to beat down anyone who disagrees with them, all while acting like they're the ones being persecuted because a cashier at Starbucks said happy holidays instead of Merry Christmas. It's the most pathetic victim complex in human history. It's like a giant standing on someone's neck and complaining that the person's windpipe is scratching their boot. We have to talk about the pro-life stance, because this is the whole cornerstone of the fake Christian facade. They will scream until their lungs collapse about the sanctity of life when it comes to an embryo. They'll pass laws, they'll protest, they'll call people murderers. But the moment that life is actually born, the sanctity evaporates faster than water on a hot stove. If that child needs food stamps, get a job, kid. If that child needs healthcare, that's socialism. If that child is being bombed in a foreign country, collateral damage. Their pro-life ideology is strictly limited to the womb. Once you're out, you're just another person they can ignore or exploit. If they were truly pro-life in a biblical sense, they'd be the first people in line to support universal basic income, environmental protections, and an end to the death penalty. But they aren't. They love the death penalty. They love war. They love deregulating industries that poison our water and air. They aren't pro-life. They're pro-control. They want to control women's bodies, and they use God as a cosmic bouncer to justify it. It's a moral sham. What we're seeing now isn't Christianity. It's Trumpism with a thin veneer of Sunday school paint. They've replaced the teachings of Christ with the grievances of a man who thinks you can cure a virus by injecting bleach. They've created a new version of the faith where the greatest commandment isn't love God or love thy neighbor, but own the libs. That's it. That's the whole religion. If a policy helps people but makes a Democrat happy, they hate it. If a policy hurts people but makes a leftist cry, they worship it. It's a hollow, bitter, and ultimately nihilistic way to live. There is no fruit of the spirit here. There is no love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, or faithfulness. There is only anger. There is only the desperate need to feel superior to everyone else, while ignoring the giant log in their own eye. They are the Pharisees that Jesus warned everyone about, the people who love the long robes and the best seats in the synagogues, but are full of dead men's bones and everything unclean on the inside. It leaves us with a movement that is Christian in name only. It's a brand. It's a marketing strategy. It's a way to get people to vote against their own interest by convincing them that they're fighting a holy war against the forces of darkness. But the real darkness isn't coming from the woke mob or the deep state or whatever other boogeyman they've invented this week. The darkness is the sheer, unadulterated hypocrisy of claiming to follow a God of love while practicing the politics of hate. It's the stench of people who use the name of the Prince of Peace to justify the actions of a king of chaos. It is quite frankly embarrassing. It's a 0 out of 100 on the scale of human decency. It's a failed state of morality. If there is a God, and if that God is anything like the one described in the Bible, these people are in for a very awkward performance review at the end of the line. They're going to show up at the pearly gates with their red hats and their tax returns, and they're going to be very confused when they're told that "I never knew you" applies to them more than anyone else. And that's all I've got. I'm going to go drink some water and try to forget that this many people are this delusional. See ya.